Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagan Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtai Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swaminiti Namine Nama Acharya Padaya Nitai Kripa Pradayine Gorakata Damadaya Nagramatarine Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtai Bhutale Srimate Gopi Paranadana Daseti Namine Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtai Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nimishunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Paritanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girimit Kripatam Hande Shri Guru Karnamikritam De Paramananda Madhusya Tanishwaram Katanchana Smrite Yasmin Dushkaram Sukaram Bhave Vismrite Vipritam Syat Sri Chaitanyam Namamitam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Paritanam Bhavanebhyo Rudradeep Nimai Prabhu. Any volunteers to read?
I can read, Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
Shall I start, Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes. After the successful 10-day Pandal festival, 700,000 had attended. Srila Prabhupada took his disciples on a short excursion to Vrindavana. His preaching tours had taken him to such places as Amritsar, Surat, Indore, Gorakhpur, Allahabad, and Benares, but never to Vrindavan. With so many of his disciples gathered in Delhi for the festival, Prabhupada considered it an opportune time to travel to nearby Vrindavana. They set out in 2 vehicles, Srila Prabhupada and 4 others in Mrs. Kamala Bakshi's ambassador and 40 devotees following in a rented bus. Prabhupada remained silent during the ride out of the city, past the factories and through the agricultural fields, groves and villages along the Delhi-Agra road en route to Vrindavan. When, after a couple of hours, they approached the outskirts of Vrindavana, Prabhupada directed the driver of his car to a village and into the center of the small town to a sweet water well. Here, Prabhupada and his party drank, took a breakfast of fresh fruit, and then continued on their way. Just before reaching Chatikara Road, which leads directly into Vrindavana, Prabhupada's car broke down. Tejas. After Prabhupada's car broke down, he rode the rest of the way with us on the bus. Our relationship with Prabhupada was very reverential. Although we were in the most intimate situation, staying with him and traveling in a bus with him. Prabhupada never said anything about it. In those days, we were actually family. Prabhupada knew everyone, and everyone knew Prabhupada would talk to him. But still, we were very reverential. In Vrindavana, Mr. G.L. Saraf accommodated Prabhupada, his secretaries, and the women in the party at his home, Saraf Bhavan. The rest of the devotees stayed in a nearby Dharmashala.
Mataji, your voice is breaking. I don't know if you're able to hear me also. Looks like we've lost her, although she's,
Vrindavana for more.
Induleka Mataji, Hare Krishna. Do we have any other volunteers? So we could.
Prabhu, it was only for me.
Induleka Mataji, we lost you for a long time now.
Oh, okay. Because I think there was some internet issue. Okay, Prabhu, somebody can continue. I don't know. We continue like this, Prabhu. It's
Okay, anyone else would like to read? Because we lost you for almost 2-3 minutes now.
Prabhu,
Oh,
I can
okay.
read.
I didn't know that one, Prabhu. My connection.
Yes, Leela Mataji, you want to read?
Yes, Prabhu, I'll continue.
Okay, you can continue from where it was that Saraf Bhavan, where the Prabhupada stayed, and the others were staying in the Dharmashala.
Yes, Prabhu. Prabhupada had come to Vrindavan for more than just a pilgrimage. He had come to try and secure land for ISKCON. When in 1967 he had come to Vrindavan from America, he had come to recuperate, but on recovering his health, he had looked for a place in Vrindavan for his disciples. He had tried to establish an American house, a center where his disciples could live in Vrindavan's ideal atmosphere and receive training in Krishna conscious culture and then go out and preach. But after 2 months of little prospect for establishing his American house, he had left. This time, however, Prabhupada was coming to Vrindavan as that city's famous ambassador to the world, renowned for propagating the glories of Radha Krishna and Vrindavan in the West. The success of the Hare Krishna movement was being widely publicized in India as Prabhupada and his band of foreign disciples traveled from city to city, holding kirtans, lecturing from Srimad Bhagavatam, and telling of Krishna consciousness in the West. So when Prabhupada arrived in Vrindavan with 40 disciples, the entire town heralded his presence. The municipality of Vrindavan arranged a formal reception attended by prominent local citizens and sadhus. A spokesman for the city praised Srila Prabhupada and his accomplishments. O great soul, today we, the inhabitants of Vrindavan, known as Brajvasis, all combinedly offer our humble welcome to Your Holiness in this holy place of Vrindavan, and in doing so, we feel very proud. For many years, you stayed at the Radha Damodar temple and worshipped Her Majesty Srimati Radharani in a meditative mood, and thus you now have the transcendental vision to deliver the entire world. As proof of your perfection, we can see these foreign devotees before us, and we feel very proud to see you have transformed them into such pure devotees. O great preacher of Vedic culture, formerly a great many Swamis went to foreign countries, but now you have wonderfully preached the Sankirtan movement and the sublime philosophy of Bhakti cult in the Western countries, and that is the only means for giving peace and prosperity to all people of the world in this age. For preaching religion and culture, your holy name will remain ever dazzling. To speak frankly, we feel intimate relationship with you, and we feel perfect satisfaction at this time in the privilege to present you this address of welcome. We take it for granted that you are one of us in Vrindavan. We are sure that wherever you travel, you must carry with you the impression of Sri Vrindavan Dham. The culture, religion, philosophy, and transcendental existence of Sri Vrindavan Dham travel with you. Through the great message Your Holiness carries, all the people of the world are now becoming very intimately related with Vrindavan Dham. We are certainly sure that through your preaching, may you be crowned a success.
Leela
Indeed.
Mataji, your voice has become faint suddenly.
Oh, is it? Okay. There was a call. Maybe something went wrong because of that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Now you're fine. Can you just repeat that last two sentences?
Yeah. Through the great message Your Holiness carries, all the people of the world are now becoming very intimately related with Vrindavan Dham. We are certainly sure that through your preaching alone, the transcendental message of Vrindavan.
Is the call coming again?
Okay, Prabhu. Repeatedly call me.
What to do? Okay. We are repeatedly hearing the glorification of Prabhupada. That's good only. It's a good thing. Krishna wants us to hear how the Vrajavasis are glorifying Prabhupada. I mean, more than what we normally hear. We read once, now we're going to read a few more times.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No
Thank you,
worries,
Prabhu.
Mataji. I'm seriously saying, I was not kidding, actually. I was seriously saying that, I mean, otherwise, everything happens by the will of Krishna only. No? He wants us to hear how the Vrajavasis are glorifying Prabhupada.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah. So I'll read the last sentence again.
Yes, Mataji. Yes.
Okay. We are certainly sure that through your preaching alone, the transcendental message of Vrindavan will spread all over the world. May you be crowned a success in these noble activities. Then Srila Prabhupada spoke, beginning by explaining how the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is trying to establish Daiva Varnashram, or a God-conscious social order with universal application. We should not consider that Krishna is Hindu or Indian. Krishna is for all. These foreigners are taking to Krishna consciousness by understanding that Krishna is for all. They are not accepting a form of...
One second, Maji. I just lost the page.
Okay. Okay, Prabhu. Yeah, since I'm on
These
the
are
mobile,
all these are all unexpected interruptions, so we hear again and again.
Yeah, I'm reading from database because on my mobile I find it difficult to read the small print.
Am I going too far up? I think so. Am I?
I mean, you lost the page as in what? I mean, because I have a physical book with me, so I just generally don't look into the screen. What,
No.
I mean, what actually happened?
I just went all the way to the top. Pressed the mouse, the middle button, accidentally.
Okay.
Prabhu, maybe you can just do a search with the words. Maybe we should not consider or something like that. Do you want to do a search?
I don't know how to match it with the thing. What is it with the Veda base? But book I know.
Are we in New Delhi, November 10th?
Vrindavan.
No.
Hey, that means you're not hearing what Rudradeep.
No. Where am I?
Yeah, just a little bit more to go. Prabhu, just above, I think you went down too far.
Okay, yeah, I
down.
think you're getting closer.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we should not consider. Come down, Prabhu, a little bit. We should not consider that Krishna is Hindu or Indian.
Further
Come
down, further
Prabhu.
down.
Okay,
Further down.
got it.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so I'll start reading from there. We should not consider that Krishna is Hindu or Indian. Krishna is for all. These foreigners are taking to Krishna consciousness by understanding that Krishna is for all. They are not accepting a form of religious principles like Hindu or Muslim or Christian. These are designated religions. If I'm calling myself a Hindu, this is not my religion. This is my designation. Because I happen to take birth in a Hindu family, therefore I call myself a Hindu. Or because I take birth in a particular land, I call myself Indian or American. But our Krishna consciousness movement is not for such designated personalities. This Krishna consciousness is Sarvopadhi Vinirmuktam. When one becomes free from all designation, he can take to Krishna consciousness. As long as one is Hindu or Muslim or Christian, there is no question of Krishna consciousness. So these boys and girls, or ladies and gentlemen who have joined me, they have given up their designations. They are no longer Americans or Canadians or Australians. They are thinking of themselves as eternal servants of Lord Krishna. Without this, there is no question of liberation from the material contamination. As long as there is material contamination, we have to devise these social orders and spiritual orders according to Shastra as Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. These are all material designations, but this Krishna consciousness movement is for becoming transcendental to these material designations. And these boys, these foreigners, they are being taught in that light. When I started my propaganda in New York, 26 2nd Avenue, that time only half a dozen boys were coming and hearing. That hearing means I was singing, chanting Hare Krishna mantra, and reading some verses from Bhagavad Gita, and they were patiently hearing. Because I know if someone patiently hears the holy name of Krishna or about his pastimes, then Shindatam Swakatha Krishna, Krishna purifies him from within. So actually, it so happened with these boys and girls. I say boys and girls because in the Western countries, there is no distinction. They are given equal liberty. In our country, there is still discrimination. I mean to say, grown up boys and girls are not allowed to mix together, although it is going on now. But in European countries, there is no such restriction. So there was no possibility of making any distinction between the boys and the girls. So many of them are attending. I was chanting in Tompkins Square Park, and these boys and girls used to surround me and dance and chant Hare Krishna mantra. Some of them became a little advanced and purified and came forward. Swamiji, please accept me as your disciple. So my condition was that anyone who wants to become my disciple must be free from the 4 kinds of sinful activities: illicit connection with women, meat eating, intoxication, gambling. In this way, on this condition, these boys and girls were accepted as my disciples. According to Pancharatriki Vidhi, when they are fairly advanced, they are given the sacred thread, Upanayana Samskara. Following the path and instruction of my Guru Maharaj, His Divine Grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, according to Shastra, they should not be considered as coming from families of Lechas and Yavanas. They should be considered like that. They should not be considered like that because they are now purified. That is also mentioned by Shukadev Goswami in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and you know of it. Kirita Hunandra Pulinda Pulkasha Abhira Shumba Yavana Kasadayaha Ye Anye Cha Papayat Apashraya Shrayaha Shuddyanti Tasmai Prabha Vishnave Namaha. How to become purified? By taking shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. So they are all purified according to the Pancharatriki Vidhi, and many of them have got the sacred thread. Prabhupada continued explaining the holy name's power to elevate anyone, regardless of birth, and he cited Haridas Thakur, who, despite his Mohammedan birth, was accepted as the Acharya of chanting the holy name. Prabhupada also discussed the dynamics of the Krishna consciousness movement, telling how, according to Rupa Goswami's principle of Yukta Vairagya, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness was using material things in the service of Krishna. In the Western countries, they are very luxuriously situated. My disciples are giving me residential quarters. Even a governor could not imagine. I remember one night, some time back, I was a guest in a Lucknow government house. At that time, the governor was Vishwanath Das, and he was personally known to me. So I remember the kind of luxurious apartment where I had the opportunity to lie down one night. But they, my disciples, are giving me all this. So we cannot reject that because that is the standard of living in America. You cannot say, no, I shall not lie down in this nice apartment. I shall lie down in the street. I am a sannyasi. Then nobody will respect me. There in America, the standard of living is like that. Therefore, Rupa Goswami says, that you should not be attached to that. But for the service of Krishna, if you have to use such things, you should receive it. People are engaged in the service of Maya, but we want to engage everything in the service of the Lord. That is the Krishna consciousness movement. So we are using airplanes, we are using dictaphones, we are using teletype machines. Even for cleansing our floor, we are using a machine. This is the system. In each and every center, we have got new cars. We cannot do without them. In Europe and America, practically no gentleman walks in the street. It is a system there. So we have to use it, but we should not be attached to it. Our attachment should be only for Krishna. And for Krishna's service, we can accept anything. That is the Krishna consciousness movement. Prabhupada concluded his address by asking for land. He wanted to establish a temple for his society in Vrindavan.
Mati, can you just pause for a minute?
Sure.
Actually, I'll speak on Prabhupada's lecture a little later because there is something that Prabhupada was trying to establish there, through that lecture. Of course, we are very fortunate that we could hear the whole, at least most of the talk that he gave. Sasarup Maharaj just put it as it is here. But there is a certain mood, there is a certain emphasis to Prabhupada's lecture, which we will deal with a little later. So please go ahead, Mansi.
Afterwards, a Mr. S, a motor parts salesman and resident of Vrindavan, offered Prabhupada a plot of land his family had been saving for some worthy religious purpose. Prabhupada smiled. Although he had only just arrived in Vrindavan, already Krishna was providing an opportunity for establishing his ISKCON center. Prabhupada thanked Mr. S for offering this service to Lord Krishna. By his donating land, the Krishna consciousness movement would increase and the donor, Mr. S, would benefit. Prabhupada was aware that behind the formal reception and ceremonial words of Vrindavan's prominent citizens dwelt a deeper feeling of reserve and even suspicion, especially among the caste Goswamis, the proprietors of Vrindavan's major temples. While accepting Srila Prabhupada's foreign disciples as devotees of a sort, many Vrindavan residents nevertheless felt reluctant to accept the foreign Vaishnavas as Brahmanas, sannyasis, and pujaris. This misunderstanding was due to a traditional Hindu concept. Only those born in caste Brahmana families could become Brahmanas. Prabhupada, however, followed exactly in the footsteps of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who had freely accepted anyone, regardless of sex or social position. When in 1932, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had led more than 1,000 followers in a Vrindavan pilgrimage, certain prideful caste Brahmanas had denied the pilgrims entry into the temple. The pilgrims had been harassed by rock throwers and boycotted by shopkeepers. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had then met with Brahmanas of Vrindavan and had scripturally proved to them that the soul, being transcendental, was free from designation and that anyone who became a Vaishnava automatically qualified as a Brahmana. The prejudices, however, had remained. Prabhupada also followed Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in denying that the Goswami title could be inherited. Goswami meant one who controlled the senses, and the title could not be adopted simply because one was born in a family of so-called Goswamis. The original Goswamis were the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan: Sri Sanatana, Sri Rupa, Sri Raghunatha Bhatta, Sri Jiva, Sri Gopala Bhatta, and Sri Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, all of whom were in the renounced order and were therefore without issue. Almost 500 years ago, these 6 Goswamis had discovered the places of Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes and had built the first big temples in Vrindavan. They had appointed married disciples to carry on the deity worship in their temples, and now the descendants of those original priests were claiming exclusive rights as temple Goswamis in Vrindavan. Prabhupada had written in the Nectar of Devotion about his spiritual master's struggle in this matter. After the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya's great associate, Lord Nityananda, a class of priestly persons claimed to be the descendants of Nityananda calling themselves the Goswami caste. They further claimed that the practice and spreading of devotional service belonged only to their particular class, which was known as Nityananda Vamsha. In this way, they exercised their artificial power for some time until Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the powerful Acharya of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, completely smashed their idea. There was a great hard struggle for some time, but it has turned out successfully, and it is now correctly and practically established that devotional service is not restricted to a particular class of men. Prabhupada therefore opposed the caste Goswamis' ideas of birthright, and the caste Goswamis feared Prabhupada's movement since it threatened their hereditary social preeminence. Yet, on this occasion of Prabhupada's triumphant return after preaching Vrindavan's glories to the Western world, no one protested his attempts to establish a temple. Those who disagreed remained silent or even offered flowery praise. The land was in Ramanreti. Prabhupada noted that the property on the outskirts of Vrindavan was located on busy Chattikara Road, a main thoroughfare into Vrindavan and a traffic route to Agra and the Taj Mahal. The land was also adjacent to the Vrindavan Parikram Path, where millions of pilgrims passed annually circumambulating Vrindavan and visiting its temples and holy places.
Okay, Madhu. I think you can stop there for a few minutes.
Okay.
So we read how Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had struggled. I mean, struggled in the sense that they had their parikrama party of 1,000 devotees were attacked by these stone throwers, and shopkeepers had downed their shutters and things like that. Sorry, my video is not on. I didn't realize. So they had downed their shutters and they were throwing rocks and things like that. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had some debates and tried to, and he had defeated their ideas, but yet the prejudices had remained. But what Prabhupada did was something which was far beyond what the caste Goswamis could conceive of. You know, people from the West, Americans, Europeans, becoming sannyasis, pujaris. I mean, what does it even mean? You know, so there was a palpable, tangible reality which Prabhupada had manifested in front of them, which was kind of, as they say, an overwhelming reality. So it was not easy for them to oppose like the way they opposed Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, because Prabhupada actually brought people from the West. Nobody could even imagine that people from the West could take up the Vaishnavism. What to speak of becoming sannyasis and brahmanas and pujaris, and it was a bit too overwhelming for the Brajavasis to oppose openly. It was difficult because Prabhupada had done something which, as they say, the impossible was done. So they did not publicly attack Prabhupada like the way they attacked Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But there is an incident, I don't remember where it is. It's in whether it's Leelamrita or elsewhere, where some Prabhupada disciples went to a Goswami temple, and the Goswami said that he'll give blessings so that next life they may be born in a Goswami family. When Prabhupada heard that, he was livid. He was very upset with that, you know. So Prabhupada had this pride. Let me put it, yes, pride in what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had done. And he wanted to establish it with even more force. That's what happened. And Prabhupada, you can see how painstakingly he explains what he is doing. You know, even for example, they may misunderstand that okay, these Western people or Prabhupada has become compromised by doing certain things, like living in a luxurious house or something in the West. So Prabhupada takes great pains to objectively explain to them what he's doing. So that's quite interesting. How Prabhupada actually continues the mission of a spiritual master, and he does it with a certain force that the Goswamis can no longer oppose, like the way they opposed Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Today, if you actually go to Vrindavan, it is because of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness that Vrindavan has gained so much popularity. You know, I mean, Prabhupada was the one who is, what do you call it? Who is the spiritual architect of present day Vrindavan. When I say present day Vrindavan, I mean the last 50 years. So, who made Vrindavan so famous? It's Prabhupada and his followers. Of course, now everybody started, see, it's like, how do you say, when there is, Prabhupada was like a huge tide or a wave, and along with him, all these other groups and others, everybody rode on that wave. So everybody is riding on the wave of what Prabhupada has done. That is a fact, undeniable fact. Because Vaishnavism saw its resurgence in India due to the efforts of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Nobody else preaches actually. You know? So Prabhupada was the one who preached this message. So the credit for the revival of Vrindavan, or the current, what do you say, the interest in Vrindavan can be attributed to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya. Okay. I'm not saying this in a fanatical sense, but this is a fact. We can take pride in the fact that it's our founder Acharya. Okay. Any thoughts? Any reflections? Any questions? Shailesh Govinda Prabhu. I don't know what happened since the last couple of weeks. We're having well over 15 participants. Last time I think we had 18.
That's because of Prabhupada's glories, Prabhuji. It is spreading daily to the ears of those that are not been listening so far. Now they've suddenly propped up to say, I better listen to this. It's going to change the rest of my life. It's wonderful. This particular episode, it just reminds me how fortunate we and the rest of the world are. I mean, of course, the Goswamis through Caitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions revived Vrindavan in the original sense, but it was Srila Prabhupada that opened it up in the international sense to us fallen millettas to be able to go and take darshan in these great temples. Otherwise, we would have had no chance, particularly for someone like me who still lives in the West and, you know, been out of India for 3 generations. We have to be careful even when we go to Jagannath Puri, or, you know, so because they will not allow foreigners, even Indian-bodied foreigners, into the temple if they suspect you're not of Indian national, let alone all these Westerners. So it is such a great fortune that we have upon us that Srila Prabhupada allowed us fallen souls to be able to enter into Vrindavan and take darshan of Vrindavan Dham. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Also, I mean, while reading this, it just, it just brought the feeling of what is our good fortune actually. What a good fortune we have in terms of, if you actually consider, Krishna comes once in a day of Brahma. That is in 2000 Chatur Yugas. It's like, of course, in 2000 Chatur Yugas. Once in 2000, I mean, that's a huge, almost practically speaking of, not literally, but almost infinite amount of time, huge amount of time. And in that, Krishna
8.4 billion years, Prabhu. 8.4 billion years.
We don't even know what it means, actually. So, in terms of that span of time. Anyway, so in that Krishna comes once. And in the Kali Yuga following that, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes. So what could be more fortunate than the fact that we're exactly in that time period? Not only in that time period, I mean, of course, Krishna consciousness is extended past him, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So although he appeared 500 years ago, but nevertheless, the movement has now spread around the world. So it's an extended pastime of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So how fortunate we are to be living in that particular period in history when we have this opportunity. And not only that, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, there has never been and there will never be followers such as the followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, I mean, take for example Haridas Thakur. He's been beaten with whips in 22 marketplaces. And he's saying, "Oh Lord, kindly forgive them." Who are these personalities? What is their, we look at the caliber of these personalities, like who we are. We come in a lineage of such exalted personalities. And how did we come into that lineage? It is by the mercy of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada. So actually speaking, sometimes, I don't know how to put it, like people have a sense of material deficiency, right? They think that, okay, I'm not born in a good family, or I'm not so rich, I'm not so beautiful, I'm not whatever, wealthy, whatever they may, I mean, Janma Aishwarya Shruti Shribi. So I'm not so beautiful, whatever. So they, I mean, I'm not saying, when I say they, I mean, those of us who are conditioned, we may have some sense of material deficiency. But when we come in the line of such great acharyas, like for the Rupa Goswami and his followers, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada, his followers, I mean, there is nothing that can be equal or better than them. So where is the sense of deficiency? It is those who are missing out on this who are deficient. Like Kadambakanan Maharaj in his final message, he says this, right? Very nicely he says it. You have the greatest wealth. He says the greatest wealthy people in this world are actually paupers. And I'll just give you a little small insight. We had Kadambakanan Maharaj Vyasa Puja a few days ago. I think it was a Wednesday. Just the Wednesday which passed by. So the devotee who recorded that last message, he said something very interesting. He was saying that it was very difficult to record that last message video because Maharaj's breathing was not very, I mean, he had difficulty breathing. So finally, with all the combinations and all the difficulties, when it was set up and he started recording, this devotee was recording, his phone began to ring. So the message was interrupted. And what would you normally expect from the usual mortal beings? They would be definitely annoyed, right? I mean, with great difficulty, and when somebody is struggling to breathe, they will normally be upset. But he said that Kadambakanan Maharaj is never upset. He simply said, "Okay, let's do it again." So the kind of legacy that we have, the Rupa Goswami and the great Acharya Srila Prabhupada and his followers, and this is what it is. This is what Krishna consciousness is all about. It can show us that it can defeat all odds, all material circumstances, all material dualities. And so when we are in the association of such an exalted parampara, we are in that lineage. What material hankering what material wealth or material accomplishment could equal that? Nothing at all. Absolutely nothing. And if we realize that, our life is successful. When Prabhupada says, just like Kadambakanan Maharaj quotes this, Prabhupada said, just give this one life to Krishna. And that we are not giving that one life to Krishna in regret. We are giving that, we have been fortunate to give that one life for Krishna with great pride of having come in the lineage of having been placed in the lineage of such great acharyas and great devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And As Prabhupada said, what is it our process? Very simple. Chanting, dancing, fasting, philosophizing. Nice Vaishnava Sangha. I mean, what could actually be conceivably more simpler than this?
Yes, Prabhu. And my profession required me to rub shoulders with some of the great and so-called great and good of the material world. So the top echelon of this world in terms of wealth and stuff. And as you rightly say, you realize what insignificant and paupers' lives these people actually live. Not just these people, but anyone that does not have Krishna consciousness in their life. How insignificantly futile their entire existence is. They have no idea of really what real happiness is and real wealth is. And they will live their existence chasing a material image of that with no idea of what her real happiness is. And that is what Prabhupada opened up for, us in that same instance, because we were in that same position, until we found Krishna consciousness, we were all in that same position. And how fortunate we really are to be belonging to this lineage. So thank you, Prabhu, and thank you, Srila Prabhupada, and thank you to our entire Parampara. It brings me to tears just thinking about it.
There is a devotee here in Mayapur. She and her husband has been living here for almost 30 years or something. So once she had come home for prasadam along with her husband. So she was saying, when I get up every day in the morning, she says, I think, I am in Mayapur. What great fortune. And I was thinking that, wow, I mean, what's it? How nice it would be. I could also think like this every day. This is actually, Mayapur is one thing, but all of us, every day when we wake up, we have so much to be surprised about. How did we, of all people, get this mercy? And let's just go for it. That kind of, that would be our good fortune. If we, every day when we wake up, if we can think like that, then we can also, it will propel us to accomplish the highest goal of life, Krishna Prema, somehow or the other in this lifetime. Okay. Any other thoughts, reflections? Indulekha Mataji.
Also just say one thing, because yes, there is one incident like they were telling when a car broke down and Prabhupada went along with other devotees in the bus. So I had once the opportunity of going like that along with my
Still have some problem with your voice. I can't hear clearly what did you say. What you said, Madhu. Could you repeat it? I don't know if others could also hear.
No, Prabhu, it was not clear.
You could not hear, right? Okay. Mataji, could you repeat it a little bit more loudly?
She can write it maybe.
Yeah. Zoom does not have voice messages, right? Anyway, at least you can type a message if it's not too difficult for you. Meanwhile, we'll take any other reflection if anyone else has to say something. I was taught by Atul Krishna Prabhu when I was doing this teacher training course. He told me that you should never ask anyone else. You should always ask who else. Because he said, the moment you ask anyone else, it's a closed-ended question. The moment you ask who else, it is an open-ended question. So you'll have more people speaking. So never ask anyone else. Still, I make that mistake sometimes. Who else? Indulekha Mataji, we can attempt once more. We can try once more.
Very, very sorry, Prabhu. I'm in the farm, so I think there is a little bit issue with the internet here because it's very far from the city, so we don't have a proper
We
internet
are able to
connection
hear you
here.
now. So please go ahead and tell us your realization.
Because we here had went in the bus along with other devotees. So I had one opportunity to go along with Guru Maharaj, Jaipatak Maharaj in the bus in when he was in South India Safari. So I was just remembering that experience, how thoroughly we have eaten was so joyful, even though we didn't have much interest in the Guru Maharaj, but it was so nice and so like, happy mood or I don't know how to explain that experience. Just I
Your voice is
remember
breaking.
the
Your
way I
voice is
want to tell.
breaking, but I'll just tell you what I understood from the first few parts. You said that
Yeah,
just
yeah,
devotees had the opportunity to travel with Prabhupada on the bus. You had the
yeah.
opportunity to travel with your spiritual master, His Holiness
Yes,
Maharaj on the safari. Correct?
yes, yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. So I was just remembering that it was really, I can't explain or put in words what was that experience. So I just remembered that maybe those were also thinking of that same, like they were also feeling that same feeling or something. It was really something which we cannot explain also. That with you or traveling with you, even though we are not interacting personally also, then the presence of spiritual master is something really, I don't know how to say, Prabhuji.
Yeah, it is a very, I mean, since you brought this up, I just want to tell you something which happened. What happened was that today is Akshay Tritiya and the morning class was given by Indradyumna Maharaj, you know. And then after that, he came to inaugurate a Sankirtan van. And I just happened to be standing there. And I saw that one devotee uh, was carrying Maharaj's footwear. So I said, can you just place that on my head? He placed it on my head. And after that, he said, hold this. You wait till Maharaj comes and then put it on his feet. So then, I mean, immediately I was thinking, what good fortune. And actually, it took more than half an hour. I was holding his footwear for more than half an hour. And then I remembered there is one picture of Maharaj actually putting that, putting Prabhupada's shoes, it's a very famous picture actually. So then I was thinking, oh, what good fortune. I get to do what he did for Prabhupada, and he's a great preacher. He's a great soul. So, yes, I mean, that feeling is quite, yeah, I agree with you. That feeling is quite, it cannot be replicated. It's irreplaceable. The good fortune of getting association with great souls who
Yes,
have done great service to Prabhupada.
yes.
Who else? Okay. Matthew, you can continue for some more time. We still have, I think, about 5 minutes to go, but still let's continue.
Sure, Prabhu. Raman Reti, literally charming sand, was mostly forest, with a few ashrams and abandoned fields. Celebrated as a favorite spot of Krishna's, where he and his brother Balaram and their cowherd boyfriends had played 5,000 years ago, Ramanareti abounded in transcendental love of God, which is the special atmosphere of Vrindavan. Although various city officials had casually mentioned that the city might donate land, Prabhupada took more seriously Mr. S.'s offer. Mr. S explained that although other sadhus had been asking for the land, he and his wife had not yet decided. They wanted to give it to a group who would build a Radha Krishna temple there as soon as possible. When Prabhupada assured Mr. S he would do so, Mr. S vowed that the land was now Prabhupada's. Prabhupada had heard such promises before, and they had often proved false. But considering this offer serious, he appointed disciples to remain in Vrindavan to draw up a deed with Mr. S. Meanwhile, Prabhupada took his disciples on a pilgrimage to many of the important holy places of Vrindavan. Barsana, the birthplace of Srimati Radharani; Gokula, the place of Krishna's earliest pastimes; Radhakunda, Govardhana, and Vrindavan's major temples. At Govardhan, Prabhupada told the disciples not to step on Govardhan Hill or pick up any of the rocks. Govardhan Hill was not different from Krishna. Also, at Govardhan, Prabhupada took the devotees to a little temple where he showed them Krishna's footprint. The footprint was very large. If Krishna's foot had been that big, the devotees marveled, then he must have been 8 feet tall. Yes, Prabhupada said, they were much bigger then. Near Govardhan, at Bindu Sarovar, a lake commemorating the place where Radha and Krishna first met, the devotees swam while Prabhupada bathed from buckets of water in the nearby field. Later, while Prabhupada took prasadam, the devotees tried to chase away a few stray dogs by throwing stones and yelling. But Prabhupada stopped them. Leave them alone, he said, and he began throwing the dogs prasadam from his plate. At Barsana, the birthplace of Radharani, the devotees carried Prabhupada on a palanquin up the many steep steps to the temple. On the top of the hill, he looked toward a distant hill. Just over there, he said, pointing. Krishna used to come down that hill. Radha would come down this hill, and they would meet in the middle. There was a forest there. So this is a very special place because it is the meeting place of Radha and Krishna. In each holy place, Prabhupada would sit down, hold a kirtan, and come before the deity and offer obeisances. Then he would briefly describe the pastimes of Krishna related to the particular place. Dina Dayadri. The Indians at the holy places were always hounding Prabhupada for money. They assumed that his disciples, being Americans, were rich, so they wanted money. Prabhupada would give something, but there were so many that as soon as he would give to one, half a dozen others would crowd around him, preventing him from walking by. In some of the temples, they wouldn't let us enter. Prabhupada then took his group to the place beside the Yamuna where Krishna had shown his mother all the universes within his mouth. Touching the water, Prabhupada said, "It is too cold for an old man like me, but you take a bath. I'll put a few drops on my head." He directed the women to a separate place to swim, where the Indian women bathed, and the men plunged in and began swimming. They sported in the water as Prabhupada stood on the bank watching. Suddenly, Prabhupada put on a gamcha, walked to the river's edge, sprinkled some water on his head, and then waded in up to his knees. The devotees were delighted to see him duck beneath the water and begin bathing and splashing with them in the Yamuna. Srila Prabhupada decided that he would remain in his quarters at Mr. Saraf's home, while his old friend Hitsaran Sharma took the devotees to Vrindavan's famous temples. Prabhupada did, however, make a point of going with his disciples to visit the Radha Damodar temple, where he had lived for several years writing Srimad Bhagavatam and Back to Godhead magazine before going to America in 1965. At the Radha Damodar temple, Prabhupada told the devotees of his plans for an ISKCON temple in Vrindavan, and he suggested to the Radha Damodar Pujari that ISKCON use the Radha Damodar temple. "We shall prepare the whole temple nicely," Prabhupada said, "and we shall make a silver throne for the deity. 50 to 100 men will take prasadam here. It will be unique. If you want to, we can do it. Otherwise, we can start our own temple somewhere. We are prepared to spend money. If you give us a chance, we'll spend it here. We want to make this a great festival in Vrindavan because it is Jiva Goswami's place. Rupa Goswami and Jiva Goswami sat here. We have literature, we have books. Everyone is associating with us all over the world." Yamuna Devi Dasi. His Divine Grace was very frequently giving indications of how much he wanted his rooms at Radha Damodar maintained nicely. He was extremely fond of his quarters there. One night during his stay in Saraf Bhavan, he agreed that he would stay for one 24-hour period within his rooms at the Radha Damodar temple. It was a very exciting event for all of us to look forward to. He selected 3 or 4 men to accompany him to spend the night there at the Radha Damodar temple. Saraf Bhavan was some distance from Seva Kunj, where the Radha Damodar temple is located. During the very early hours of the morning, I walked through the streets of Vrindavan and arrived at the Radha Damodar temple. Inside of Srila Prabhupada's sleeping room, I could see the light coming through the latticed red stone windows and the wooden shutters. Back and forth, he was walking and chanting. Suddenly, very much to my surprise, the wooden shutters burst open and a shaft of light filled a small corner of the courtyard. Prabhupada stood in his room under one bare light bulb. When he saw me, he asked, "How have you gotten here?" I said that I had walked. "Oh, this is not good," he said. "It is very dangerous in the street. There are so many wild dogs and there are dacoits. In this quarter, a man will kill even for a lota, water pot." So there was some chastisement from Prabhupada on the one hand, but on the other hand, he seemed pleased. "So you're chanting japa?" he said. And I said, "Yes, Srila Prabhupada." He said, "That is very nice. So go to the Samadhi of Rupa Goswami and chant there." Then around 4 o'clock, other pilgrims were starting to filter in to attend the morning Aarti program. Prabhupada came out where we were chanting and he said that this corner at Radha Damodar temple was just like the hub of the wheel of the spiritual world. It was the center. He requested that his rooms always be well maintained and that they be cleansed daily. Radhanath. I had only met Srila Prabhupada briefly in Bombay and then I had gone alone to live in Vrindavan. I had lived there about 6 months with the local people and it was there that I got real attached to Krishna consciousness. I used to just live on the bank of the river with all the Babajis, a very simple life. And I know it was just by that initial contact with Prabhupada that that seed was planted. One day, a big bus full of American devotees having a kirtan pulled into Vrindavan, and I was thinking, "Oh, here they are again." The first thing I asked was, "Is Prabhupada coming?" And they said, "Yes, Prabhupada is here. He will be speaking tomorrow morning." I was already attracted to a lot of gurus in Vrindavan, Prabhupada's god brothers, and also devotees from other sampradayas. But on the morning when I came for the Bhagavatam class and heard Prabhupada chanting Jai Radha Madhav, I just sat there and listened. I had never seen anyone with such a quality of love for Krishna. All the great people I had met in India became insignificant when I saw Prabhupada chanting Jai Radha Madhav. He was so serious and grave, and the quality of his devotion was so intense. I just couldn't believe it. He kept looking over at me every now and then, kind of nodding, because I guess he remembered me from Bombay. Then he spoke, and he was glorifying Vrindavan so nicely. He was talking about how wonderful Vrindavan is, how spiritual the atmosphere is, and he was talking about how careful the devotees must be to take advantage of the atmosphere. From that day, I started thinking, this is my Guru Maharaj. Just because of the way he spoke, his lecture had been so precise and inclusive that it had encompassed every other philosophy and every other teacher I had ever heard. I could see also that Prabhupada's example was pure, and I could see his disciples were actually giving up sinful life. I used to go to his darshans every day, although I was still living on the bank of the Yamuna. All the people of Vrindavan were glorifying Prabhupada. They were so proud of him because the people of Vrindavan are attached to Vrindavan. They love Krishna and they love Vrindavan because Vrindavan is the place where Krishna lives. That's their mood. They worship the land of Vrindavan, but they would tell me they appreciated Prabhupada. Most of them would call him Swami Bhaktivedanta. They would say, he's the greatest saint because he's bringing Vrindavan all over the world. He's making the glories of Vrindavan known to the whole world. Then one day Prabhupada and his disciples went to an ashram in Ramanreti. I got there late, just as Prabhupada was leaving. He was walking the last 20 yards or so to his taxi, and many Brajvasis were offering their full dandavats in the road. I felt very insignificant, another member of the crowd, and as Prabhupada walked by me, I offered my full obeisances also. When I lifted my head to get up, however, I saw Prabhupada's feet were right there in front of me. I thought, oh my God, Prabhupada is standing right there. I very slowly looked up, and Prabhupada was just standing there, looking right at me. He looked me in the eyes for a couple of seconds and then said, "So, how long have you been here in Vrindavan?" I said, "About 6 months, Srila Prabhupada." He just looked at me again, and he was in a very serious mood, very compassionate, gazing into my eyes. He nodded his head and said, "Do you like it here?" I said, "This is the most wonderful place I've ever been in my life." Then, all of a sudden, his serious expression just blossomed into the most beautiful smile. His eyes were glistening radiantly, and he looked at me for about 5 or 10 seconds. It seemed like a real long time. I couldn't believe the mercy he was giving me, and then he just replied, "That is very nice. Vrindavan is a wonderful place." And then he walked on. This was very special for me because most of the devotees were always telling me I was in Maya for staying in Vrindavan. And because I was kind of attached to my own program in Vrindavan, I was feeling that devotees didn't understand, and I was upset with them, thinking that they didn't appreciate the atmosphere. But Prabhupada's words alleviated all my anxieties towards the Hare Krishna movement. It was the most special personal contact. It wasn't what Prabhupada was saying, it was his personal transcendental concern for me. So then I went to his classes every day and all the darshans, and there was no doubt in my mind. He very much convinced me on every level of Krishna consciousness. When Prabhupada left, the devotees told me that I should join and go on parikram with them all around India. And they said that Prabhupada had personally invited me to come. I was unbelievably appreciative that Prabhupada was so merciful. But at the same time, I was very attached to Vrindavan. I told them I just wanted to stay here, and if they ever came back, I would serve Prabhupada here, but that I didn't want to leave Vrindavan. Soon after that, my visa expired, so I had to leave the country. But before I left, the people of Vrindavan, especially the Babajis, were telling me that Swami Bhaktivedanta had established New Vrindavan in the West. They said, "If you have to leave Vrindavan, you should go to New Vrindavan. So whatever you do, don't leave Vrindavan. New Vrindavan and old Vrindavan are the same because Swami Bhaktivedanta has created Vrindavan in the West." They said it with great pride. So I left for New Vrindavan.
I think you can stop.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. See, there are some of these things which are mentioned are all there in video format. You can actually see Prabhupada going up Varshana in a palanquin. You can see him visiting Brahmanda Ghat, telling the story of how Krishna opened his mouth. Then you can see Prabhupada getting into the Yamuna, first refusing, then later getting into the Yamuna. All of these things are there, are captured on video. I mean, this morning my son, he usually plays these things during breakfast, and I think it's purely Krishna's thing, that arrangement. That just this morning I saw this whole thing, whatever was described here, not by Radhanath Maharaj, whatever he describes here, but the what Satsvarup Maharaj describes was all. It's all in video format, actually. In fact, Radhanath Maharaj also speaks in that video, but he speaks a little differently than what he has spoken here. They in the video, what happens is they show and then they recollect what is happening. Like he talks about Prabhupada's daily darshans. He talks about Akinchan Krishnadas Babaji visiting Prabhupada. A lot of interesting anecdotes, and I think it is DVD too in that Prabhupada memories. Anyway, I will look it up and I will inform you next time. So we haven't finished Vrindavan. There's lots more. I mean, I wouldn't say. I mean, whatever. There is more about Vrindavan coming up. So next week also we'll still be dealing with it to whatever extent, and then I will also at that time I'll send you the exact link, and I can also give you a timestamp where you can find Prabhupada in Vrindavan. Okay. Any quick thoughts or reflections? Already 4:40 and 42. Another 3 more minutes. 5 o'clock is the thing, so I'll have to leave soon, so I can get there by then. Is the boat festival okay? Any quick thoughts or reflections? Okay, so we'll end for today. We'll resume next Sunday. Thank you all very much for joining. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhurevacha paritanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. The Prabhupada ki jai. I really feel inspired seeing so many people, and it's the more we all hear the Prabhupada Leela Amrita, the more potency there is in it. The more the number of people, the merrier it is. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Just a quick question that just came to my mind late. This Mr. S, is that Mr. Shroff the same Mr.? Is it same?
It looks like to me because I didn't want to say it in today's class, but in that video there is also this whole discussion about how the Vrindavan land was acquired and
because it sounds like it's a Gupta donor by virtue of calling him Mr. S. But then they talk about Shroff, Prabhupada staying at Shroff's house or something.
Correct. And also in the video, that's very clearly mentioned as Sarap. That's a very humorous episode. How Prabhupada does it, which we will take it up in the next class. How Prabhupada deals with Sarap. Yeah. And there are a lot of contenders who are trying to get that place also. It's quite funny that in that video.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Enjoy the birth festival on all our behalves.